finally revealed. The heartwarming transformation of a millionaire after 30 years of life alone. In the quiet suburb of Ohio, the grand Thompson mansion stood like a gilded cage, containing the silent heart of a man named Henry Thompson. For 30 long years, Henry had wrapped himself in solitude, turning his back on a world that seemed to turn against him. Since a family feud shattered his connection with his son, Jake, his opulent life felt empty, like the hollow echoes that reverberated through the empty halls of his home. Through the large windows, he watched the world move on without him. Neighbors gathering to share laughter and resources as the local economy crumbled, and a fierce storm left many families shivering in the dark. The storm rolled in, dropping rain like tears on fragile rooftops. As the winds howled, so did whispers in the town. Resentment clashed with need. Henry's wealth, once a badge of honor, now alienated him, showing him how far he had distanced himself from the community he used to cherish. Starving for connection, he sat at his window, noticing the warmth radiating from the homes of his neighbors. He saw them working together, their laughter mixing with the steady patter of rain, a sound that weighed heavily on his heart. That night, something shifted. A neighbor stood on the precipice of despair outside Henry's mansion. Her name was Martha, a single mother struggling to keep her children fed while their home lacked a roof. As she crouched down, tears streaming, Henry felt something inside him stir, a sympathetic push from years of isolation and guilt. Suddenly, the walls of his mansion felt constricting, suffocating. He realized his wealth was useless without the warmth of human connection. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by guilt, Henry steeled himself to step beyond the mansion's threshold. He approached the community center where neighbors rallied to support one another, offering food and shelter. His heart raced as he was met with skeptical glances, the weight of judgment palpable in the air. A bitter reminder haunted him. He was now the reclusive millionaire who had abandoned them. Determined to change, Henry announced a charity event to aid locals rebuilding their homes and lives. The tension in the air crackled when he caught sight of Jake. Old wounds resurfaced, each tension-filled glance echoing years of silence. As the event approached, emotions bubbled beneath the surface. Could he truly find forgiveness? Or was he too late to mend what had once been broken? On the night of the charity event, a hesitant hope filled the air, buzzing like the flickering candlelight that struggled against the shadows. Just when Henry began to share his revelations about what it truly means to love and be a parent, Jake confronted him. Their shared pain ignited that charged atmosphere. With unresolved issues teetering on the edge, the question loomed. Could they bridge the rift caused by years of hurt, or would it all shatter once more, like glass breaking underfoot? As townspeople witnessed a father's vulnerability battling with a son's resentment, emotions ran high. Hope hung in the air, yet a thick silence choked the lingering possibility of reconciliation. Would Henry's moment of honesty be enough to sear through the pain, stitching together a family's broken bond? Henry's heart pounded in his chest as he stood before the gathered crowd, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The weight of their collective energy bore down on him. Had he waited too long? Would they even accept his honesty, or would his admission only deepen their resentment? Jake, he said, his voice trembling. I've spent too many years hiding in this mansion, drowning in my own regrets. I know I've caused you pain, and I am so deeply sorry. The utterance of those words felt both freeing and terrifying. He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking as the echoes of a shared past danced in the air, urging him onward as Jake met his father's gaze. A flicker of vulnerability sparked in his eyes. For years, Jake had carried the burden of disappointment in his father's choices, the actions that had torn their family apart. Finally, in that moment, it was clear to Henry that healing was possible. but it would require courage from both of them. Before Jake could respond, the townsfolk's expressions shifted. They whispered amongst themselves, sharing their own stories of struggle and resilience. Their gestures were warm yet tentative. Some nodded in understanding, others averted their eyes. Henry felt the collective heartbeat of the community they too had suffered, and perhaps they could relate to his regret. "Your heart seems in the right place, Henry," Martha called out, wiping her eyes. "But it takes more than words to prove you've changed. Actions speak louder, you know?" Those words hung heavy in the air, echoing within Henry's mind. He had been a man of action in business, but this was different. This required a different kind of courage, a vulnerability he'd long buried beneath wealth and pride. "Then let me show you," he said, a newfound resolve igniting within him. "I'm pledging my resources, my time, and my heart to help rebuild not just houses, but the bonds between us." Jake squinted, the torchlight from the candles revealing the turmoil in his expression. "You think you can just toss money at what we need? It doesn't work like that, Dad. You can't buy back lost time." There was pain behind Jake's words, a sting that cut deep, but amidst the tension hung a hint of hope. "I know it won't be easy," Henry replied, "but I have to try. I need to be here for you and for everyone I've failed." As the crowd absorbed his words, the atmosphere thickened with unspoken feelings. It was a pivotal moment. Henry felt the shift, the tentative opening of a door that had been bolted shut for far too long. Then, unexpectedly, there was a commotion at the back of the room. A voice rang out, "What right do you have to ask for forgiveness?" Startled gasps filled the hall as an older man stepped forward, his face marred with years of hurt. "Every day I see my family struggle because of you. You think charity can fix this? Nothing can undo your absence." Henry's chest constricted. The man's words pierced him, raw and unfiltered. He turned to face the townsfolk, their expressions shifting again, bitter acceptance, longing for closure. "Please," Henry pleaded, voice trembling. "Each of you deserves so much better than what I've given you. I want to work for your trust." Silence followed, heavy with expectation. Jake stood at the precipice of choice, caught between past pain and the glimmer of a possible future. Would he be able to relinquish his resentment for a chance at reconciliation? Just as hope began to lift among the crowd, Henry felt a flicker of dread. What might it cost him to open his heart completely? Would he be prepared for the truth hidden beneath layers of resentment and grief? As the community waited for Jake's response, a pivot point in both a father's journey and a son's willingness to forgive, the air vibrated with both fear and anticipation. Would the night yield the answers they sought, or would it deepen the chasms that had formed over decades? In the hush that followed, one burning question remained. Could forgiveness really emerge from the ashes of a broken bond? The silence in the room was electric, a taut wire ready to snap. Henry's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through him as he searched Jake's face for any sign of what was to come. Would his son break the silence with acceptance, or would the words cut like a knife, severing the fragile thread of hope he had spun with his confession? "I don't know," Jake finally said, his voice barely a whisper. The uncertainty twisted in Henry's gut. "I just don't know if it's that simple." He paused, glancing around the room, taking in the eyes of neighbors he had long neglected. "How can I trust you after everything? After all those years of silence?" Henry's chest tightened. He had opened a wound, and now it was bleeding. But those words, they weren't just pointed at him. They were rooted in the pain of the entire community. Could he bear that weight? "I understand it's not simple, and I don't expect it to be easy. All I'm asking for is a chance to prove that I can be better." The crowd shifted restlessly, the tension palpable. Martha stepped forward again, her brow furrowing. "Henry, we want to believe you. We do." She held her hands out, pleading. "But you can't just say you'll change. We need to see it. We need real action." "Yes." Another voice chimed in from the back. "We've all been waiting for so long, and it feels like words just aren't enough anymore." The community murmured in agreement, nodding somberly, some even whispering memories of past hopes dashed. Henry felt himself sinking, but he couldn't let go. This was the moment that mattered most. Then what do you want from me? Tell me how I can show you that I mean it. I'll do anything. The vulnerability in his voice shattered the final barrier between him and the crowd. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, staring into the distance as he pondered. You want to help? Start by fixing the community center. We need a safe space for our kids. You can toss money at houses, you can buy new roofs, but if we lose our heart, the community center, the kids never come back to us. Each word hit Henry square in the chest, a sobering realization washing over him. The center, he knew, had been a gathering point for families, a place of laughter and support, a stark contrast to the isolation he had created in his own life. Okay, he whispered, the weight of the promise heavy on his shoulders. I'll do it. A flicker of something that resembled hope ignited in Jake's eyes, uncertainty mixing with cautious optimism. And don't just rebuild it, Dad. Be there. Volunteer. Get involved. Show us you care. Henry nodded, determination bubbling within him. I will. I'll be there. I'll give my time and my heart. The crowd seemed to exhale, though he was still keenly aware that trust wouldn't return overnight. He had a long road ahead of him, and he would need to be steadfast in his commitment. Then from the side, another figure stepped forward, Martha's son, a quiet young man who had once idolized Henry as a successful businessman. But what if you can't? What if this is just the same old story again? His honesty cut through the moment, causing the air to grow thick again. Henry swallowed hard, holding their attention. Then I'll fight harder than ever to be the man you all deserve. A man I've neglected for far too long. With each exchange, the walls that had stood for years seemed to tremble. The cracks of old resentments were beginning to show, and, for the first time in long memory, Henry felt a sense of reconciliation. But he hadn't fully earned their trust yet. As he looked from Jake to the others, he knew this was just the beginning, a fragile seed growing in rocky soil. Would he nurture it, or would he let it wither away like his past mistakes? The air was thick with hope and fear, the crowd waiting, expecting more. Henry turned to Jake, who was still unsure yet wavering. I'll do everything I can to make this right, he said firmly. Promise. But just then, a last voice broke through, echoing the heart of the townsfolk. What happens when it gets hard? When we doubt you again? Would he be able to sustain the change? When the going got tough? The question lingered in the charged atmosphere, challenging him as it challenged all of them. Would this truly be the moment that changed everything? Or would it just fade like so many other empty promises made before? Henry could only hope, as the weight of 1,000 possibilities pressed down on him, igniting a fire of determination and fear within. Henry took a deep breath, feeling the weight of that question settle in the air like fog. He scanned the faces before him, some painted with skepticism, others yearning for change. The community center project loomed like a lighthouse, a beacon of hope amid his turbulent past. I know you doubt me, he said, his voice steady but soft. I've given you reason after reason to doubt. But this time I need to do this for all of us. He glanced at Jake, whose eyes were flickering like a candle flame. I want to show you I can be a part of this community, not just a distant figure. Jake nodded slowly. We want to believe you, Dad, he replied, his voice more firm now. But you've got to understand what it's going to take. The crowd began to murmur again, a gentle hum of voices rising and falling. Martha stepped in, her fingers subtly clasping one another in front of her. It's not just about the building, Henry. It's about rebuilding trust, rebuilding relationships. Each word felt like a push against his chest. Henry clenched his fists, a heat rising from deep within, the desire to transform himself roaring louder than the doubts. Then let me prove that I can, he declared, emboldened. I'll be out there every Saturday. I'll talk to kids, listen to their needs, show up when it counts. A moment of silence wrapped around them before a small voice came from the back. A girl he recognized from the neighborhood feasts. What if you just get bored? You haven't been here before. A pang of truth hit Henry hard. He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling his insecurities flare up again. I can't promise I won't struggle. But I can promise I won't walk away again. His heart pounded as he spoke. To really change, I'm gonna need help too. I'll lean on you for support. That statement cut deep, a rare moment of vulnerability. Jake looked at him, surprise mingling with a hint of admiration. If you mean that, I'll help, Jake said, his voice steadier now. But you've got to find ways to stay connected to us, all this isn't just about the center. Henry's heart swelled. You're right. There are so many stories out there, and I want to hear them. My mistakes don't define me, but this community does. The crowd's tension thinned, uncertainty giving way to a flicker of curiosity about the man standing before them. It felt like stepping onto a tightrope, balancing between fear and hope. As the concerns ebbed, an elder in the crowd, Mr. Santoro, spoke up. We need you to be part of those hardships too. Don't expect it to be easy. You'll face doubts, especially from yourself. Henry's gaze locked onto Mr. Santoro, the challenge igniting a fresh resolve. I know it won't be easy, but facing my past, it's what I owe to each of you, to my son. Martha turned towards the others and nodded. If we want to move forward, we'll need a plan. Perhaps a town meeting next week? A chance to discuss ideas together? The idea electrified the room. Henry felt momentum shift gently in his favor, belief flickering in the air. I'd be honored to help organize it. Maybe I can show my commitment through action and building this bridge between us. Chatter arose about scheduling, and for the first time, Henry could see glimmers of hope sprouting amid the skepticism. He was still on shaky ground, but the thought of building something together fueled a fire in him that he hadn't felt in years as the voices around him mingled pleasantly. Henry caught Jake's eye. Are you really willing to take on this challenge with me? He asked, vulnerability dripping from his tone. Yeah, I am. But let us see how committed you really are. Jake answered with a light smile, his first in a long time. A knot of tension lingered in the air, but the spark of something new was igniting. And as conditions began to shift, Henry's thoughts meandered. What would they discover together? What would happen when the weight of the past pressed against the promise of this new beginning? The path ahead would be riddled with challenges, but Henry felt anticipation mixed with determination. What would happen if the struggles grew heavier than he had anticipated? Would the community rally around him, or would the past pull them back into silence? The next Saturday dawned cool and bright, casting gold across the empty lot where the community center would rise. Henry stood at its edge, heart racing. The sounds of laughter floated in from the nearby park, mingling with the distant shouts of children playing. This was it. A chance to step into the light instead of hiding in the shadows of his past. That he checked his watch, nerves gnawing at him. Jake was right. He needed to be here to show he was serious about change. But doubts crowded his mind like storm clouds on a sunny day. What if he faltered? What if they saw him for who he used to be? As he walked toward the park, he spotted a few familiar faces. Martha was setting up tables, arranging snacks, while others carried blankets and chairs. He approached, searching for courage. Hey, Henry. Martha looked up, her face breaking into a welcoming smile. Glad you made it. We can use all hands on deck. Of course. Just point me where to start. A glint of approval flickered in her eyes, and Henry felt a spark of warmth. He joined a small group assembling activities for the kids. They chatted animatedly, sharing stories and laughter. It felt strange at first to be included, but the more they engaged with him, the more he realized he didn't need to prove himself to each person individually. As the sun swung higher in the sky, Jake arrived, arms laden with supplies. He dropped the items with a loud thud and flashed Henry a lopsided grin. Look at you, Dad. Sunlight and positive vibes. Henry chuckled, feeling his mood lift. Can't believe I actually got out here. Nice. Navigating the tasks, he answered questions and offered help, feeling those old walls he had built begin to crack. For the first time, he wasn't attempting to hide from the world. He was part of it. And then came the moment that shuddered his heart. Kids began arriving, their voices filling the air with laughter and excitement. Mr. Henry, can I help paint? One small boy tugged at his shirt. Absolutely. Let's South make this place colorful, Henry replied, kneeling beside him. Together, they filled cans with bright hues and began splashing them onto a large canvas. The The child beamed, his joy infectious. Time slipped away, the hours melting into the fun of community. Henry forgot his fears, lost in the rapture of creation and connection. The sweetness of simple moments made his heart swell, and laughter danced in the air, a soothing balm over his restless spirit as dusk approached. The group gathered for a moment of reflection. Grinning faces turned toward him, their trust still tentative but growing. "You're not bad for a guy who wasn't here before," Jake said, folding his arms, teasing him gently. "Yeah, well," Henry started, but the words caught in his throat. A wave of emotion washed over him, and he felt vulnerability drape over his shoulders like a comforting quilt. "I'm just thankful for this chance. You're more than I deserve." "Stop that," Martha chimed in. "You're right where you need to be." Their encouragement wrapped around him, but there was a worried edge in his mind. Had he really changed? Or was this all a temporary bubble waiting to pop? That night, as he lay awake, staring up at the ceiling, doubt clawed at his heart again. Could he sustain this newfound commitment? What would happen if he stumbled? The moment stretched before him, dark and uncertain. And then, like a whisper in the dark, came the thought. He had recurring choices ahead. Would he lean into his fears, or would he embrace the supportive hands reaching out to him? As he settled into his thoughts, a new question gnawed at him. Just how deep did the roots of change go? In the days ahead, more challenges awaited, temptations from his past, uncertainties from his present. Would he remain grounded when the storm came? Would the community still support him, or would they retreat back into doubt? The air was crisp as Henry woke up the next morning, the sun pouring through his window like a golden invitation. He lay there, thoughts swirling. Shadows of his old life flickered in his mind, moments he wished he could erase. Times when he felt he was merely surviving instead of living. Today felt different, though. Out there, a community was waiting for him to step back in. Jake was already up, bustling around the kitchen. The smell of coffee wafted through the house, mingling with the scent of pancakes on the griddle. "Hey, sleepyhead, get up. We've got a lot to do today." Jake's excitement was infectious, pulling Henry into a sense of urgency that felt good. "Yeah, I'll be right down," Henry called, forcing himself out of bed. Today was about more than just the community event. It was about demonstrating to himself and others that he could keep moving forward. He dressed quickly, taking a deep breath as he faced his reflection in the mirror. "You've got this," he murmured to himself, hoping to silence the echo of doubt that always lingered as they drove to the park. Henry felt a shift inside him. The trees lining the streets seemed to shimmer, alive with possibilities. The community center was buzzing with energy. Chairs were being set up in neat rows, and laughter spilled from fellow volunteers who had come to help. "Henry," a voice called out from the crowd. It was Martha again, her smile bright enough to banish any remaining doubt. "We're doing some games with the kids. Can you help with the relay race?" "Absolutely," he replied, the word bursting forth like the enthusiasm he felt. The day flew by in a flurry of laughter, shouts, and games. Henry felt like a kid again himself. He cheered the children on, watching their faces light up as they dashed from one end of the course to the other. Each smile he received made his heart swell with joy. But it wasn't just the kids. The other adults, too, began to warm to him. They laughed at his silly relays, gave playful nudges, and even shared their own stories of past mistakes and the will to change. For the first time in a long while, he felt seen, not as a former shadow but as someone who could really be a part of something beautiful. But as the sun hung low, bathing the park in an orange glow, Henry caught sight of his old friend Eric from across the field. His heart skipped a beat. Eric had been part of his world, the world he was trying so hard to leave behind. Henry's stomach tightened. Could he truly escape that past? "Hey, everything okay?" Jake asked, his voice pulling Henry from his thoughts. "Yeah, just seeing someone I used to know. It's weird." "Don't let him steal your vibe. You're doing great. Enjoy this moment," Jake urged. With newfound resolve, Henry forced a smile, pushing those doubts aside. He busied himself with the last preparations of the day. Yet, even as laughter echoed around him, He felt a storm brewing within, a clash between who he once was and who he wanted to become. As dusk settled and the sky darkened, the laughter faded to tired chatter. Henry felt the pull of those familiar shadows creeping back, reminding him of the choices that still loomed ahead. The past could come back to haunt him, but he was done running. After the final race, he decided to take a walk, to find some quiet before heading home. The world seemed sharper in the evening light, and with each step, he pondered. Was he ready? Could he confront Eric? And what would he say when their paths crossed again? Just when he thought he'd found his footing, the ground beneath him felt uncertain again. As he looked around, a flicker of dread crossed his mind. Did he have the strength to put his past behind him for good, or would he slip back into old habits when faced with temptation? The night stretched on, filled with questions he had yet to answer. They weren't just fears. They were the very roads he must choose to take to move forward. And just as he resolved to face whatever lay ahead, a shadow fell across his path. Henry? The voice was unmistakable. He turned slowly. Would he run, or would he finally confront his past? Henry's heart raced. There, just a few steps away, stood Eric. His old friend looked as if life had slapped some maturity onto him. But the glint in his eyes remained unchanged, an old fire pulling Henry back to memories he'd tried hard to forget. "What are you doing here?" Henry managed to say, his voice a mix of surprise and apprehension. "I heard about the event. Figured I'd come check it out," Eric replied, attempting a casual grin. "It's good to see you." "Yeah, you too," Henry replied, but the words felt hollow. He couldn't help but remember the chaos of their past, the late nights, the wrong choices, the moments that had dragged him into darkness. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken thoughts. Henry fought to hold his ground. "I'm doing really well these days. I've come a long way," he said, challenging himself to sound sure. "Good for you," Eric said, although the surprise in his voice suggested skepticism. "I never thought I'd see you in a place like this." "Places change," Henry answered, stepping forward. "People too." Eric shifted, looking away for a moment. The laughter from the park faded, leaving only the sounds of distant chatter and the rustle of leaves. Henry's mind raced, torn between the nostalgia of past camaraderie and the guilt he felt about how he had left everything behind. "This community stuff, it's important," he continued, desperate to bridge the gap that threatened to swallow them whole. "This is where I found my footing again. You think volunteering makes it all okay? You think nice gestures erase what we did?" Eric countered, the edge in his voice matching the tension in Henry's chest. Henry blinked, grappling with the past that flooded in like a tidal wave. Was he really about to find himself back here? He thought about his friends, the warmth they offered, the support he had received. He didn't want Eric to hijack this moment for him. "No," he said firmly, shaking his head. "It's not about that. It's about who I want to be now, not who I was then. I want more than just surviving, Eric. I'm trying to live." A flicker of something passed over Eric's face. Was it remorse? Or mockery? And what if you fall back in? What's to stop you from running back to old habits the moment it gets tough? That question hung heavy in the air, threatening to unravel Henry's fragile confidence. "Because I refuse to let fear dictate my life," Henry said, feeling the pulse of determination in his veins. "I choose to remember and learn, not to live in the past." The night around them felt charged with energy, a battle of wills wrapped in uncertainty. Could they reconcile the boyish mischief of their past with the men they had grown into? Eric studied him, eyes narrowing as if searching for some deeper truth. "You really think you're ready? I don't have all the answers, but I can't let you or anyone else keep me from trying," Henry replied, the sincerity in his voice startling even him. "Then maybe we see where this goes," Eric said, a hint of softness cracking the tough exterior he wore. "But I want to make it easy." Henry felt the weight of those words, a challenge wrapped in the guise of friendship, still balancing on the precipice of his past and uncertain future. Before he could respond, the faint laughter from the park called to him again. It beckoned like a lighthouse cutting through the fog. He stood there, caught in the whirlwind of what-ifs and the stirrings of hope. "Let us go back," Henry suggested suddenly. Why don't you join me? Maybe we can, I don't know, figure it out together? Eric looked taken aback. Seriously? Yeah. Seriously. If we're both moving forward, then what's wrong with checking in on how? You can't do this alone, right? Henry felt a thrill of energy course through him. Maybe this was a chance not just for a reunion but for something transformative. The air felt lighter, charged with newfound possibilities. And as they walked side by side, Henry realized one truth had become clear. Sometimes facing the past head-on opens a door to a brighter future. But just as they reached the laughter of the community, nagging doubt whispered in his ear. Was he really ready to take this step? Or would the scars of history hinder the path ahead? With each step drawing nearer, Henry could almost hear the echoes of his old life fading into the background. But could he resist the call of temptation lurking just ahead? Tell me the truth, Henry, Eric said suddenly, breaking through his contemplations. How are you really doing? The question hovered between them, heavy with significance. It sparked a moment of vulnerability. As they approached the laughter, Henry's heart raced. Could he bear it all and still stand tall? Now, staring into the unknown, he felt the weight of that moment. Would he respond with honesty, or would he shield his heart once more? The answer felt like the turning point he desperately needed. Would he let the truth set him free or bind him tighter than ever before? Henry took a deep breath, letting the familiar sounds of laughter wash over him like a soothing wave. It was a simple melody, filled with joy and warmth, yet it felt loaded with expectations. Standing there with Eric, the laughter suddenly felt distant like a party happening just out of reach. Not okay, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Eric tilted his head, eyes wide with a mix of surprise and concern. What do you mean? It hasn't been easy, Henry confessed, each word feeling both liberating and terrifying. Even after all this time, I still have moments where the past tugs at me, reminding me of who I was. Sometimes I don't know if I've really changed, or if I'm just pretending. Eric stayed silent for a beat, processing Henry's admission. The facade of his old bravado faded slightly, revealing a hint of empathy. I get that. Believe me, you're not the only one carrying baggage. Henry felt an unexpected connection at that moment. For years, he pushed away any thought of Eric, always ready to shut down memories that threatened to drag him back. But here they were, two guys faced with their own histories, ready to confront their respective demons. Do you ever feel like you want to go back? Henry asked, half hoping the answer would be no, half needing to understand if he was alone in that yearning. Sometimes, Eric admitted, his voice low, but I know it won't bring what I need. It's just a ghost that lingers. That realization sparked something in Henry. They were both running from shadows that, while familiar, were no longer their reality. The journey of self-discovery was shared, an unspoken thread tying them together. Why did you really come here, Eric? It's a big event for the community. But it's also full of people we know from back then, Henry probed gently. What are you hoping to find? Eric shifted uncomfortably, gazing off into the distance as if searching for words in the trees swaying softly against the silvery moonlight. I guess I thought I'd see what moving forward looked like. Maybe test the waters, you know? Moving forward, Henry echoed, heart racing as the weight of that phrase settled in. Isn't that what we both want? Yeah, but it's harder than it sounds, Eric replied, eyes narrowing slightly. You make it seem so easy, like you just flipped a switch and decided to be better. What's your secret? No secret, really. Just a lot of support. People who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. For a moment, silence enveloped them again. The laughter from the park seemed to dance along the edges of their conversation, reminding Henry that joy was still within reach if he dared to reach out for it. But then he noticed Eric's face had shadowed over. Do you think it's too late for me? Eric asked, vulnerability cracking his voice. It's never too late, Henry said firmly. I thought it was for me, but the best part is we're not alone in this. We can lean on each other. Eric hesitated, as if weighing the weight of words that could change everything. I don't know if I'm ready to rely on anyone else again. What if I mess it up? Then we figure it out together, Henry pushed gently. And if one falls, the other helps pick them up. That's what community is for, right? The humorless smirk on Eric's face shifted to something softer, fragile. Maybe. I just hope it works out like you say. As they moved closer to the park, the sounds of laughter grew louder, wrapping its warmth around them. But Henry's heart thudded with uncertainty. Was he really equipped to guide Eric on this journey? Could he be that rock while he himself felt like shifting sand? Before they reached the laughter that promised acceptance, Henry paused, an unsettling thought surfacing. What if looking back becomes too tempting? He asked, voice taut with concern. What if our past draws us in? Eric's gaze sharpened. Then we have to fight for what we want, no matter how tough it gets. With that, their eyes locked in a shared commitment, unspoken but deep-rooted. As they resumed walking, Henry questioned one final time if he was truly ready to delve back into the shadows of their shared history. But maybe, just maybe, turning toward the light meant walking back into darkness without fear. The laughter of the community loomed larger ahead. But in the pit of Henry's stomach, a different kind of voice whispered, was it bravery or recklessness that drove his heart now? The laughter grew stronger as they approached the park, a vibrant tapestry of voices weaving through the air. Henry's breath caught in his throat, mixing anticipation with dread. It felt like stepping into sunlight after wandering in shadows for too long. Could he really belong here with everyone around him, knowing the struggle they had faced, each laugh masking a history? Eric moved slightly ahead, the spark of courage rekindled in his eyes. Promise me, he said, glancing back, that if things get overwhelming, we stick together. No retreating into old habits. Henry nodded, heart hammering. Promise. As they entered the park, the atmosphere shifted. Friends, neighbors, and old acquaintances mingled, their faces a blend of familiarity and anxiety for Henry. He searched for a connection, hoping to find someone who would anchor him. And then, he spotted Mia across the crowd, a vibrant smile lighting up her face. She waved, beaming. Henry, Eric, she called, striding toward them. I'm so glad you guys came. We need you to join us. Her enthusiasm was infectious, but Henry felt a flurry of emotions swirling inside him. Hey, Mia, he managed, trying to mirror her excitement while grappling with the rush of memories she stirred. Her friendship had always been a bright spot, yet it reminded him of the person he used to be, the doubts creeping back in when he didn't want them to. What have you two been up to? She asked, eyes glimmering with curiosity and warmth. Just catching up, Eric replied, searching for clarity in the moment. Figuring things out. Mia's face softened, a knowing look reflecting in her eyes. That's what I love about this community. We're all on a path, wrestling with our pasts. It's okay to not have it figured out. Henry exhaled softly, her words wrapping around him like a hug. But then he felt a tremor of fear. Could he show them the side of him that still felt lost? He glanced at Eric, whose face mirrored his own turmoil. Let us get some food. I hear they have the best tacos here, Mia suggested, pulling them into the heart of the crowd. Laughter bubbled around them, and for a moment, he let the energy seep into his bones, a gentle reminder that joy was still possible. As they navigated through the throng, Henry caught snippets of conversations. Stories of accomplishment, setbacks, and candid confessions danced around him. It felt like a tapestry of resilience, woven with threads of vulnerability. Each shared experience seemed to unify them, eroding the divide that had formed in his heart. Let us try over here. Mia gestured to a taco stand, excitement bubbling in her voice. Are you both hungry? I'm starving. The lightness in her tone was contagious, and Henry felt a crack begin to form in the weight of his worries. Could he accept this moment? The laughter enveloped them again, and he took a deep breath, inhaling hope as they waited in line. The chatter flowed freely. Eric shared a memory from their childhood, a funny story that made Henry chuckle despite himself. Just like that, time slipped away, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of belonging spark within him. But then, as they collected their tacos, Henry's gaze fell upon a familiar figure standing outside the park boundary, watching them from the shadows. His heart raced, A figure from his past, an unwelcome ghost from another chapter. Could this be the one force strong enough to pull him back? He swallowed hard, fear sparking deep within. Would facing this shadow threaten everything he was building? Before he could process further, he felt Eric beside him, intuitively sensing the sudden shift. "You okay?" he asked, concern etched in his features. Henry turned to Eric, heart pounding. That S someone from before. I thought ID left that behind. Then let us face it together, Eric said with quiet determination. Henry hesitated, wrestling with the urge to flee or stand firm. Everything he thought had changed now seemed ready to unravel. But deep down, he felt something shift. Was it time to confront the past he thought he deburied? Or would this encounter drag him back into the shadows? The laughter around him faded into a distant hum, the weight of his decision hanging heavy in the air. As Henry stood transfixed, staring at the familiar face lurking just outside the park, a hurricane of emotions churned within him. The echo of laughter from the community faded, as if they were trapped in a moment frozen in time, and everything felt dizzyingly fragile. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Eric asked, his voice steady but low, his eyes darting between Henry and the figure at the edge of the celebration. Henry swallowed hard, torn between the desire to retreat and the urgency to confront his past. He drew a shaky breath and squared his shoulders. "I have to. It's time." With a nod, Henry and Eric joined forces, moving deliberately through the crowd, as if crossing a tightrope over uncertainty. As they approached, the figure became clearer. Sam, a shadow from Henry's past, a face he once trusted, now heralding memories of choices he deeply regretted. "Henry," Sam said, a smug smile appearing, though there was something unsettling lurking beneath it. "Look who's busy with the charity now. Good to see you haven't forgotten your roots." There it was, the crack in the veneer of Henry's new reality. The doubt that lurked at the edges of his resolve threatened to creep back through. But for the first time, instead of shrinking beneath the weight of shame, he felt a flicker of defiance igniting within him. "I'm trying to build something better, Sam," Henry replied, his voice firm. "Not just for me, but for everyone I've let down. You wouldn't understand." "Oh, is that so?" Sam mused, arching an eyebrow, sarcasm dripping from his words. "You think this little facade of community connection will change anything? You're still the same guy underneath all talk and no action." Henry felt Eric beside him, a steady presence, bolstering his courage. "You don't define him anymore, Sam," Eric said, stepping forward. "You're not a part of this. We are." Henry turned to Eric, heart racing. Could he really stand tall here, anchored by camaraderie instead of past mistakes? "I've made changes and I've learned how to be better," he said, a calm crescent of conviction forming in his chest. "This community means everything to me. I'm here now, working to right wrongs." A flicker of surprise crossed Sam's face, a reality check that didn't sit well with him. And how long would that last? "You make it sound so easy." In truth, it isn't, Henry admitted, the vulnerability flowing through him like a current. "But I have a support system now, friends, family. They make me want to fight harder. I won't hide behind money anymore." As the words poured from him, he felt lighter, like those weights of regret were tumbling away, brick by brick. "Your friends? Don't make me laugh," Sam scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "You'll be back to your old self soon enough. This is just a phase." But Henry held firm. "I'm not turning back. I've got a chance to build something real, and it's going to happen with or without you." As if on cue, laughter erupted from the park, enveloping them, children squealing, adults cheering, life pulsating through the evening air. It felt almost magical, a reminder of what mattered most in that moment. Surrounded by the burgeon of community love, the shroud of Henry's past began to break. No longer confined by the constraints of guilt and isolation, he could breathe. Henry turned back, catching a glimpse of his neighbors Martha, Jake, and others, their faces alight with unfiltered joy. It filled his heart with overwhelming warmth, an immersive wave of acceptance that resonated with clarity. "This is my home now," he declared with renewed strength, "and I'll fight like hell to keep it." With that simple statement, the air shifted, and Henry felt the swelling tide of support from those he once estranged. Sam, left in the shadows, faltered. The bravado slipped away as he registered the collective strength, standing by Henry's side. A glimmer of vulnerability flashed in Sam's eyes. You think you're so tough? You'll fall. But Henry could feel the cracks deepen. If I do, trust that I'll rise again. With this community beside me, I've got everything to fight for. As Sam turned away, resting with his own doubts, Henry felt the shroud of uncertainty peel back fully. He was no longer that man masking pain behind wealth and pride. With each step back towards the brightness of the community, he was stepping into the new version of himself. The connections real, raw, and unwavering would carry him forward. Let us get back to it, Eric said softly, resting a hand on Henry's back. Henry looked at him, grateful for the bond they were building together. Thanks for standing by me, he replied sincerely. Always, Eric said, a smile illuminating his face. As they rejoined the laughter and celebration that awaited, Henry felt his heart swell with commitment and hope. He had learned that reconciliation was a journey, not a destination. Today he would choose connection, choose vulnerability, choose to stand tall in the face of shadows. And in the embrace of the community, surrounded by those who knew both his scars and his resolve, Henry was finally home. Now, for you reading this is where our story merges with yours. Remember, transformation is not just a tale. It demands action and commitment. You need to subscribe now to this channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are waiting just for you. Leave a like now. Your support feeds the algorithm and shows others the importance of change. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. It's time to inspire change. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.